Welcome to another 5-minute religious education recap video. We are on the exam board Eduqas. We're looking at the foundational Catholic theology paper and we're exploring good and evil unit today. Today's session is going to focus on original sin and I'm hoping you'll be able to explain that by the end of this video. So first of all, let's make a distinction between sin and original sin. Well, a sin is any action which goes against God's rules, and it's when you deliberately turn away from God. And as a result, this distances people from God. Now, some of the easiest examples you can think about for sins are the Ten Commandments. So go for things like lying or murder, stealing, or even denying God. Any of these that you make a free choice to do would be a sin, and as a result, you're distancing yourself from God. Now, this is slightly different from original sin. The belief of the original sin is that everyone is born with original sin. And this original sin is different from those individual personal sins that we were just talking about then. Now, for original sin, it states that everyone is born sinful. And because we are born sinful, it means that we're kind of born with a built-in urge to do bad things, so commit more sins and to disobey God and further distance ourselves from God. So we've got this building up of personal sins that we commit, such as lying, stealing, denying God throughout our lives, but we are also born with original sin. So we start with this kind of starting off point of wanting to sin and be distanced from God. So where does this actual teaching of original sin come from then? Well, it all stems from a saint called St. Augustine. He was a Catholic bishop and he wrote a document called The Doctrine of Original Sin. Now, Augustine, he looked at the book of Genesis, in particular the story of Genesis 3, to try and discover where evil actually comes from. And what he saw in that story was Adam and Eve. And he saw Adam and Eve making kind of the first mistake, or the original sin. And what that was God gave them clear instructions. Don't eat from this tree, and both of them disobey it. So what we find is when they make that have that disobedience, they make creation less good, and that resulted in evil and original sin being created. And this is why Augustine says the deliberate sin of the first man is the cause of original sin. So Adam and Eve's deliberate disobedience is the cause of original sin, of us having that first being born with the will to want to do bad. Now, this raises the question, how do people have original sin today then if it was something that Adam and Eve did? Well, Augustine believes in the inerrancy of the Bible. What I mean by that is he believes the Bible doesn't make mistakes. God is omniscient and he reveals information through the Bible. So therefore, the Bible speaks the truth. Now, when Genesis states that God created the human race and the first people are Adam and Eve, Augustine argues that therefore we are all descendants of Adam and Eve. We're all part of their family tree. So since we're all part of the family tree, any mistakes they've committed, we also inherit. So we actually inherit this original sin from Adam and Eve into ourselves. And this is why Augustine says we are all seminally present in the loins of Adam. Literally what he means is we're present in Adam's sperm. We are all biologically part of Adam's family, and therefore we inherit those negative traits of that original sin, as well as some of the positive traits of freedom of choice and free will. Now finally, if we look at the impact of original sin, overall, what we can see is that humans, because of this original sin, we've become distanced from God. Sin separates us, but we have that starting off point where we are distanced from God already. Obviously, one of the impacts of original sin is that we all inherit it. We just saw Augustine talking about that. One of the things about original sin now is that humans can die. Prior to original sin, we were immortal. We lived a pain-free, immortal life in Eden. One of the punishments is that humans, they will have pain in childbirth. Humans are born with the desire to sin, and also we now know that humans have the difference between good and evil. We can make choices. Humans were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and finally men will have to work hard and farm the land. All of this for Augustine was revealed in Genesis 3. So as we can see, original sin has a multitude of impacts. Some you may consider positive, others you would consider negative. Now, looking at all that from today's session, you should be able to explain what original sin actually is. So have a little look down this list. If you feel that you can write a sentence about each one and explain how they link to original sin, then you've been successful today. If you find it a little bit tough, then maybe go back through the video, have a little bit of a look over them, pause it, make some notes. But if you want to push yourself that little bit further, you could look at these example questions and plan out a couple of the answers. Whatever you do, good luck and thank you for listening.